So I've had a pretty slow start to the deer season. I'm probably not even going to show much footage other than what I'm talking right now from my first 3 hunts. First day, opening day, went to a new area, a piece of land that I bought. I've actually sold it now. I got to hunt it twice before I sold it. First day, bumped some does out of their beds. Almost actually got a shot out of them. Didn't really have any action after that. The second time I hunted was at my main kind of home property. Went to just an easy stand to get to before work. Didn't see any deer. I've sat there in the past and seen quite a few deer, but it was hot that morning. And then my third sit was back at the property that I actually sold now. It was the day before I sold it, the day before I closed on it. And actually bumped into those does again in a completely different area. Had one fawn come by, wasn't bigger than my Labrador. So I didn't shoot her, and that's pretty much all that happened on the first 3 hunts of the year. It's been really hot. This cold front finally came in, so I'm in Oklahoma now. Been scouting for a while. I'll show y'all some footage from all my scouting. But yeah, so I'm in Oklahoma now, so this is ready to go. How's it going, everybody? I have made it to Oklahoma, to this land that I have permission to hunt up here. It's a little bit different up here this year. There's some beans this year that I saw coming in. It was a little wet, so I don't know if they were able to get corn in or not, or maybe he's just rotating, but there are some beans, and they're still standing. So I'm going to try to go glass those this evening. Where I usually see the bucks, right here just off of camp. Looks pretty similar to last year. Actually, the brush is a little bit taller this year, which is good. I only have like an hour, maybe hour and a half of daylight left, so I'm not going to go trudging in there yet. I'm going to spend a lot of time in there tomorrow because I know there's a big buck in there. The past 2 years, I've seen the same big buck in this 20 acres of this property. And then he's been eluding the other guys that hunt out here 2 years prior to that. I think he might be a 7 or 8 year old buck. So I'm not going to trudge into there tonight. I'm going to just drive. This place is huge. It's like 5,000 acres. I've got permission to hunt here. I'm going to drive around, hit a bunch of different spots, try to glass up some deer tonight. If I glass up a big buck, mark him on Onyx maps, and maybe later in the season go back to that area. But I know tomorrow I'm going to scout this area pretty hard, and maybe a couple other bedding areas that I know of. Like I say, this place is really big, but there's not a lot of cover on it. So anywhere that there is cover, the deer are there. It's fairly simple, but at the same time, it's not that simple. There's a lot of irrigation ditches. They spend a lot of time in those. So, and I still haven't even been covered. In 2 years, I've only covered maybe 3 spots on this whole place. So my goal this evening is just get around, look at some different areas, get acquainted with a few different areas, and then move on. Little notch in my plans, I get here, my pop-up camper was full of, I don't know, swamp ants, black ants, those big black suckers. So there's a guy that I found who's gonna come get it. Says he's gonna fix it up, local around here, and I told him he could have it because it's a hunk of junk and I don't want it anymore. So I'm gonna drive around, find some deer. Well, I drove around a bunch this evening and spotted a few does. Went on a couple short walks on some field edges. What I'm really trying to do is see if the deer are congregating in any particular area, other than where I've traditionally seen them in that one woodlot. And like I said, I didn't get here in time to really dive into that woodlot. I'm gonna spend quite a bit of time in there tomorrow. I may even do, and I don't even know, I may push into bedding and sit in there all day tomorrow. I don't know. I may still hunt my way in until I find some hot sign and set up on it, or I may scout some other areas early, and then after lunch dive in there, scout till I find a hot sign, and then set up. The buck in that area, he's been bedding in the same little willow thicket for 2 years now, so I have a pretty good idea that he'll be there again. But this evening, like I said, drove around a bunch. All of the corn is cut, and most of it's been plowed under. Some of it hasn't been plowed under, some of it has weeds growing up in it, but I have learned that the deer will eat these weeds that grow up where the corn was. There's not much for oaks, if any oaks. There's pecan trees and cottonwoods, but not much for oaks. So the food source is going to be natural browse and the little bit of standing beans that are left. And I didn't see any deer in the 2 patches of standing beans, and I was looking at them right at dark pretty much. I didn't see any deer in them, so that leads me to believe that the deer either have plenty to eat other than the beans, or the beans are past what they want to eat. They've turned from yellow back to brown, which traditionally deer will come back to them, but I didn't see any deer in the beans. If I saw 10 or 15 deer out in the beans tonight, I'll scout harder in them tomorrow, but I didn't find anything. So tomorrow I'm gonna probably just do some hard scouting in the morning, put some miles on the boots in the morning. I've got 2 areas that just look like great bedding, and I want to get in there and scout them. And then tomorrow afternoon, jump into that woodlot on the river where I've had all the good buck encounters. So that's the plan for right now. I am going to head back into town about 15 minutes away, since my pop-up camper was full of swamp ants. So I'm gonna head back into town, get a hotel for the night, get up before daylight in the morning, and head back.
How's it going, everybody? It's Saturday morning, October 12th. I'm gonna spend this morning scouting out these bedding areas. I'm on a big willow point that juts out into a crop field. The corn is cut and plowed under, but I still think the deer will be bedding in here. If they're not, I'm just going to move on to my evening spot. But I should be able to scout for a few hours in here, so let's see what we can find. So there is a definite buck bed right there. I've got this tree here. Really matted down in here. You can see he snapped this twig coming in and out, and it's really matted down. This is right on the tip going out into this field. Let me show y'all what it looks like from in here. This is pretty much what he sees out of this bed here. Open field, a little irrigation ditch going out. But that is sure enough a good bed. I just don't see any hot sign around it. There's a couple more beds close to here. See here, that's matted down, that's down. There's the tiniest little rub right there. But there just aren't a ton of big fresh rubs, and it's all really thick grass. so it's hard to find tracks. But that's one of the best beds I've ever found. It's gonna be a tough one to hunt. I'm not even sure if he's using it now though. There was some fresh rubs, I'd say he's definitely using it now. But there aren't any fresh rubs, so he could have been using it. Could have been a summertime bed when the corn was cut. Had no need for that bed anymore. He could have moved on. So I'm gonna work my way back through, see if I can find any more fresh sign, and then go on to a different area. But that's a really good bed. He just might not be using it right now. I'm gonna see if there's any fresh hair in it. Well, this morning's scout was fairly unproductive. Well, not unproductive, but it didn't produce much for buck sign. I found those couple really good beds, but man, I'm just not fully convinced that the deer are using them right now. I feel like if a mature buck was using that bed right now, there would be fresh rubs or scrapes, heck, even droppings. I didn't find any poop in that area, so I just don't think it's being used right now. So I'm going to drive around to a couple more areas, do some speed scouting today until lunchtime, eat lunch, and then probably around 1 o'clock head back into where I know there's a good buck living, and quite a few does as well. So I will shoot a doe tonight if I get presented with an easy opportunity. I will shoot a doe tonight as well. So that's the plan for right now. It's about 9 o'clock. That didn't take as long as I thought it would. I thought I would find some sign and slow down and still hunt for an hour or so, but never found a good sign to slow down. So I'm going to head back to this area and just drive by and see if any of the other hunters have stands or feeders up or anything out on the edge. Most of these guys are rifle hunters, so you know they'll have feeders out, but the rifle season in Oklahoma doesn't open till November 23rd. I think I might be the only bow hunter on this place, but there's potentially 8 or 9 people that rifle hunt, so I've pretty much got it to myself for a while. But they do have feeders. They come out, fill them up, and check their cameras and all that good stuff. So I'm going to get down here and see if there's any feeders out, and there could even be some deer even potentially still out feeding. It's still pretty cool out. It's 42 degrees, so let's go check this out. I'm headed out for my afternoon hunt. It's a little after 2. I'm going to work my way down into this bedding area. I've got my saddle on. If I can find a tree to set up on, I will use my saddle. If not, I also have my tripod for my camera, which kind of sucks. Self-filming. So I've got all kinds of 70% of my gear right now is camera gear. If I was just hunting, all I need was my steps and my saddle. But this is what I choose to do to myself. Makes it worth the while. Keeps me entertained. I'm gonna make my way back here and just slowly work my way into the bedding area till I find a hot sign and then set up. Well, I scouted for about 2.5 hours, 2 hours probably. Found where a hunter has put up a corn feeder. There was still corn on the ground from this morning, so I don't know. It's not like it was piled up a bunch, but there was still corn in the pile, so they're not just hammering it. I went off into the timber, and my plan, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I feel like it could work. I wanted to scout a section of the woods past the bedding. My theory, if I did bump into any deer, I'd push them into this bedding that I'm hunting right now. So I don't know if that was a stupid or a smart theory. I don't know. I did find one really good bed with a few rubs in it, so that was encouraging. I found a pretty decent rub line going down a little road, four-wheeler trail really. Now I'm set up in a tree. I'm only 6 feet from the ground, just above the grass. This grass is real tall. I wanted to hunt from the ground, but you couldn't really shoot through it. And I wanted to get up in a tree up here, but it is all on its own. I mean, just all out there by itself in the sun. Just wouldn't work. So I found this tree here. It's about big around as my thigh. And I'm only 2 steps high. Wild edge steps, that is. And if something comes in, it's going to be close, really close. I can see a long ways out into this hay field. And I can see a long ways and observe down towards where that corn feeder is. But last year, when we were here in January, well really last year in October, I jumped a buck out of a bed 100 yards from here. He wasn't in that bed today. But there's a ton of bedding this direction. And that deer in the past have filtered out of this bedding into this overgrown field, and then went to the neighbor's place where there's a pecan orchard. The past 2 years in January when I've hunted, that's what's happened. And past 2 years I've seen the same buck and couldn't get a shot at him. So, we're gonna see how this goes. I kind of walked all over the place. I could have boogered it all up. I don't know, but I needed to know if this one area had beds in it, and it did. So it had beds in it. Now I know that the bucks do bed in that area. I didn't scout this bedding area here because I know there's deer in there. Whether or not they come out, I don't know. This area gets fairly small amount of pressure during bow season. It's really just me, so these deer shouldn't be very educated. There have been people out here checking on cameras and feeders and stuff, but that shouldn't have bothered them very much. We all stay tuned. I'm going to see if this buck comes out today. The farmer just showed up in the pecan orchard. He looks like he is going to collect some hay bales, and then he might mow again so he can harvest the pecans here in a couple weeks. It might work to my favor. He's a long ways away. Could push deer this direction. As long as he doesn't come this way. But if anything, it's going to help me.
couldn't do an interview in the stand when the hunt was over because I had to sneak out of there in the dark, and I didn't want to talk and scare that buck away. Pretty much as soon as the farmer cleared out, that buck showed up. I mean, maybe 5 minutes later. I know exactly where he was bedded, within a quarter acre of where he was bedded, maybe less, maybe a tenth of an acre. There's just a patch of willows. A couple of them have fell over, a couple of them lean over, and I've just found a lot of good beds in there. Man, I grunted and rattled at that buck, and he looked and listened, but really didn't care at all. He just, I guess he thought it was out in the willow thicket. He didn't care. He was just going to eat. But that buck, or whether it's the same buck as last year, the year before, or whatever it is, it really doesn't matter to me. I don't care if it was the same buck or not. But mature bucks have been coming out of that bedding area for 4 years now. And I'm having trouble figuring out a way to kill them when they come out. There's no trees there. There's really not a great place to hunt from the ground. I think what I might have to do is a hay bale blind. There's hay bales out there in that area. If I got a hay bale blind and put it up there, I think I could kill a deer big time. I don't know if you could just throw those things out. It doesn't bother them or what. I don't know. But I think a hay bale blind could kill that buck. With a different wind, there's a tree that I can get in. But with the wind I had today, which is like a southeast wind, which is kind of weird, I couldn't get in that tree. Plus the wind was kind of switching back and forth, south, southwest, southeast, and then it would go straight east sometimes. It was just kind of swinging around. It does that in those willow thickets. The wind just swirls. But that was a fun little quick trip up to Oklahoma. I'm driving home now, about a 2-hour drive. Get up and go to church in the morning with my family. Found some really good beds. Saw that good buck. Had a great weekend. Y'all be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. This will be the end of episode 1, and probably in a week or 2 I'll have another episode up, and maybe I'll have a buck on the ground, or at least a doe. Thanks for watching.